Repeated, targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing account to receive, at minimum, temporary suspensions. The words cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. Tweeted Elon Musk. First part, fine. Mostly, it's an effective definition of harassment that actually lines up with what harassment is, a pattern of behavior, not just saying something once online. Still think it's different when it's on public profiles of public figures, but this trash-ass general standard is here to stay, and this is at least a crumb better than the "a tweet someone doesn't like is harassment" bollocks you used to get on the Bird app. The second part, very cringe. Almost as cringe as saying very cringe. Don't care if you can make it fit with a dictionary definition of slur. This is on the platform of Twitter. For policy purposes, it is classified as a slur. Per Twitter's rule page, as of April, they may make you delete a tweet using slurs towards someone, or decrease a tweet's visibility if it includes a slur in any context, a designation that now includes cis. Aha! I'm going to own the libs by also being a little bitch about particular words, increasing the amount of shit you can't say online. I'll be an even bigger victim than you could imagine being. Epic meme, upvote to the left. There is a time for holding people's feet to the fire of their own standards. This is getting toward cutting off your nose to spite your face territory, though. You're gonna see a circus for a very short while, people screaming about it. But even if cisgender reaches N-word status on social media, your ideological opponents will be just fine. And the underlying standards of acceptable speech, which they benefit from and utilize more than you or I or Musk does, will only be reinforced. Literally, the restrictions are increased. Bro, don't actually tell Team Twitter to enforce this. There are other things you can do to make people like you. My disapproval of this statement of policy aside, is it a slur? Sometimes. It describes a characteristic of someone, and you can use it with negative connotation or as an insult. Yeah, it can be a literal dictionary definition slur, I think. However, the fun part is that it's more than that. J.K. Rowling wrote in a tweet following this, "Cis is ideological language, signifying belief in the unfalsifiable concept of gender identity. You have a perfect right to believe in unprovable essences that may or may not match the sexed body, but the rest of us have a right to disagree and to refuse to adopt your jargon." Nice 2015 YouTube comment, JK. What she's saying, and the way, specifically in which she cares, I think, could be quite important. She doesn't think it's super mean. She's not saying, "That's a deep ouchie, you're attacking me for my immutable characteristics." The upset is that to call her cisgender is to call her something she doesn't self-identify as, and to throw all the baggage that comes with that onto her, the whole ideology that comes with identifying yourself that way. It's like the crime of misgendering, but a step further. You're not calling someone who says they're a woman a man. You're telling someone who doesn't believe in gender that they have a gender, as opposed to just having a sex, and then on top of that, you're asserting what that gender is. It is a very pushy way to behave, I don't deny that, but here's the rub. Something like this happens when you talk about yourself, too. You don't have to be throwing words at people. In the wild world of gender, simply describing your own supposed identity can be just as bad. It's like what I was saying last week. Team inclusion casts a wide net, but there are hard barriers. They can't, and have no intention of, including everyone, because having a particular view of gender is mandatory to them, and therefore, if you disagree, they have to say the way you view yourself is illegitimate, because if it isn't, then their view isn't definitely true. People like JK, though, are hard mode. Normally, when someone says they believe in gender, and believe there are two, the response generally is that that doesn't allow for, say, non-binary people to be recognized by you as existing. You're denying their existence. Why it's any of their business what you recognize is another question for another time. So, you have to accept their model of gender, which they'll say allows for your identity to exist too. Doesn't really. A gender in a binary model and a gender as a point on a spectrum are two different identities, but that's the compromise. You have yours, and have to also let me have mine in a model I want to be agreed upon by all and recognized by, say, the government. Against someone like Rowling, it's a bit different. They can't tolerate her not buying into gender because that means they aren't being recognized, and they can't offer her inclusion in their system no matter how broad they make it. She's saying no to the whole thing. She's not saying there are two genders, she's saying there are none. There's no point on their spectrum she'd accept as a compromise. I guess they could try forcing her to be the gender known as agender, but that's like saying an atheist who thinks the Bible is nonsense is a kind of Christian. You must have a gender identity. You must have an innate sense of gender. Everyone does. You must at least say you have it, even if that means doing backflips to say your gender identity is not feeling connected to any specific gender identity. But you still totally have one, because everyone does, and that's a bona fide, settled science fact. If you don't have one, then the people who are saying everyone has it and it's on a spectrum, that would mean they're wrong. That would invalidate so many people. What we're offered is freedom of gender, with caveats, not freedom from gender. My personal thoughts, yeah, gender's totally real. And so is astrology, and being a goth. Every religion, real. That's not the same thing as being true, accurate, innate, or necessary, though. Gender's something people believe in, something that maybe they even feel. It's socially constructed, I guess, in the sense that society might influence their views of it. That's not the same as everyone having a gender identity in their soul. Maybe religion, like I mentioned, is a good thing to look at here. Lots of mutual exclusivity, even when it comes to beliefs of different groups practicing the same one, even between individual interpretations within those smaller groups. We can't all be totally right, folks. People handle that. Well, worldwide and historically they don't, but you know what I'm saying. It can be done, sometimes in some places. You can have people believing mutually exclusive things, having it be important to them, and coexist. More importantly, when people don't handle it and see non-belief in their religion as unacceptable or even as a threat, 1, things get pretty bad. 2, they end up very unpopular with everyone else they're now being hostile towards, especially if they try to tangibly enforce their views. And gender conflicts have incredible potential to compete with, or even be worse than, religions clashes. With religious disagreement, you're saying other people are wrong about something, either explicitly or by believing something that means another person's belief can't also be true. And that'll mostly be about divinity, the world, our purpose, what's good, what a particular text means, whatever. Who's got God's favor? Maybe a little bit rougher, especially if it involves, I don't know, entitlement to land. My point is just that there can be many, many peaceful religious disagreements, despite there being some big uns, too. In contrast with that, with gender, your disagreement almost always means, explicitly or implicitly, saying what a person believes they are doesn't exist. I am this in my heart, and I need X, Y, or Z thing to be done or provided to me to accommodate that, or I'll die, versus, no, that's not even real, is pretty spicy. Even spicier when that's going on within one territory, not between them. Crank it up another notch when it's happening amongst people who have to personally interact with each other. Add a sprinkle of fighting over what kids are told the real ultimate truth of gender is in school, a splash of surgery, and we've got ourselves a party. I hope I'm wrong, but it looks to me like people pretty unanimously want the government to pick a side, to cut through this knot with brute force. We, and I am an American, exclusively an American, believe it or not, so I can say we here, we don't have separation of gender and state. To me, running to authority is the nuclear option in ideological disagreement, but looks like we've been typing in those codes and pounding those big red buttons for a while now. When you can't reach that level of top-down power, as usual, people want communications platforms to hew to their side. And as usual again, it's the people most entrenched on either side who are the players, while the rest of us have to deal with whatever fallout comes of it, only able to discuss it amongst ourselves and figure out how it's going to affect us. For something that's supposed to be personal, cultural, subjective, and so on, gender sure does generate a lot of demands for how things should exactly be done or be viewed and enforced. Strange, as with other conflicts of this nature where there are fully invested sides and a constant back and forth, there's going to be a lot of pointing fingers at who shot first. My side just had to react, of course. I'm only defending my kids or women or minorities, but that detail hardly matters at this point. Whose fault it is we're here is irrelevant. All that matters is, in the grim darkness of our present, there is only the endless gender war. Anyway, how did I end up here? Oh yeah, is cisgender a slur? Yeah, sometimes I guess. Slurs are cool though. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.